Hey, welcome to my Reader's Journal. Today I'm going to be going over In the Afterlight by Alexandra Bracken. And this book is the third book in the series, it's the final book. I did not know that this was the case. When I bought the box set of the series, it came with 4 books. So I was under the impression that this series was a 4-part series. And as I was reading this book, and as the events were unfolding, I'm over here like, wow, like this book is really giving me everything that I wanted, and I had no idea where book 4 was gonna go. So then I finished the book, and then I didn't even realize that it was like the final like book until like afterwards when I was looking at other reviews. I was like, wow, this was the final one. Um, so that definitely skewed a little bit of my process when I was reading it, but I will say that I did like the book overall. So, the first thing that I want to talk about is the pacing of this book. Honestly, I like the pacing of this book because to me, it moved fast in the sense that like things were coming together in a natural pace, and at no point did I think that it was going too slow or it was going too fast. I thought that things were coming together naturally. I think towards the end, yeah, some of the things do come a little faster than I had expected. But again, I thought that this series was a 4-part series. So some of the things at the very end, I was like, couldn't she have just waited to like do this in the fourth book, not knowing that there was a fourth book? Yeah, I remember seeing some of the reviews that other people had that they were saying that the pace was really slow in this book, that they didn't like that a lot of the books stayed in the ranch location, and I actually have to disagree. I know that the majority of the books stayed in the ranch, and usually, yeah, that can seem really slow, but to me, the way that I was reading the book and the way that I was perceiving it, a lot of the things started coming together. Getting more kids into the camps, getting the supplies ready to do the breakouts of the camps, everything that was happening with Clancy, the leadership dynamic that was happening between Ruby and Cole, like, and even the relationship struggle that Ruby and Liam were having in this book, I thought did seem more natural because you see her actually going through the motions. You see her struggling with things, which I also did like seeing in this book, that Ruby is struggling with her mentality and even like her physicalness because she notices that she's not getting enough sleep, and then later on we understand why and we get that revelation, but we see her actually struggling through things instead of just moving through the motions. So the pacing to me didn't bother me. I actually liked the way it was moving, because again, even when they were in the ranch, to me, I saw the puzzle pieces coming together. So to me, it still felt like things were still happening. The next thing that I have is I like the scene of where Vita was being vulnerable with Ruby, when she was first getting jealous about Zoo coming back and Zoo getting like a lot of attention from Ruby. So in the previous review, I had mentioned that I wasn't really a fan of Vita. It wasn't that I disliked the character; I just wasn't invested in her per se. And this time around, after finishing it, I again didn't feel invested, but I did like having her in the group just because she does add a different dynamic that the group didn't have. So I did like having her in. Again, it's just not a character that I'm invested in, which is okay because I don't have to be invested with everybody. I did like, but I did like having that moment where her and Ruby are having that one-on-one where Vita is showing that vulnerability of, hey, for the past 6 or so months, like Ruby has been with the league and like that group, like her and Nico, and she is afraid that now that Ruby's original group, um, so Charles, Liam, and Zoo are back together, like she's worried that her and Nico are just gonna get shoved to the side, especially with how Ruby was treating Nico. And I think her expressing that showed a lot more emotional vulnerability, and that made me like her more as a character because before she didn't show that, whereas now she is showing that she does care and she does care about Ruby and everything. So I did like that scene. Also, we gotta point out Zoo came back. The thing that I've been waiting for this whole series is Zoo coming back. I think for me, she's not necessarily like my favorite, but I did like having her there because I thought her and Ruby really had this good connection. So I was really happy of having her back, and then also the arc that she goes through from being a young child that's scared, and rightfully so, realistically, but going from that personality to being someone who, granted, yes, still a young child and still like scared at some points, but being able to finally speak her truth, being able to voice out what she wants to voice out, because in the past, she was a selected mute, like she chose not to speak, but now she has been practicing, and finally she was able to speak and tell her truth. And I like that it was a moment where she was being videotaped in order to like showcase the whole world because she really is telling her story. I think I still would have liked it equally if it was just a moment between her and her little group. One thing that I did want to bring up is the letter that Liam writes himself in the case that Ruby erases his mind again. And I thought that this was a nice touch because if you think about it, he's coming from a position where his girlfriend in the past had erased his mind in order to like protect him, and like push him to the side, just because things needed to get done, right? And he is worried that something like that would happen again, that she will have to erase his mind, like either to protect him or or because Cole asked him to. So I thought that that was a really nice touch, and I like that that also added a another layer of complication to their relationship, and that being something that Ruby is like, if you're worried about this, like we're just like done, because she doesn't want that to be a thing that really impacts her future later on. So I really like that being in there, and I like that that to me felt like a natural thing that anyone in general would do. Or so besides Cole's death, and for his death, I just thought that it was unnecessary, and that I can get to later. But besides his death, I liked everything else that was in the book. I wrote a couple things down that I did want to point out. So like showing Ruby's physical vulnerability, like I thought that that was a really nice touch for the author to really showcase about the main character, because again, Ruby's going through all these things, and as readers, you have to imagine she's got to get tired. Like she has repeatedly said that she's either not sleeping when she's at the ranch or doing this and that. And I like that it's showing that it's taking a toll on her physically. And then also we see that it's also taking the toll on her mentally. And then I also did like that it was getting tied into Clancy's attempt to escape, because Clancy was with him the whole time. And it would be hard to believe that he wasn't trying to escape. So if him not trying to escape through Cole, then it made sense. And I like that it got tied into him basically manipulating Ruby's mind in order to get his plan going, in order to get like the government, the military to come to rescue him out of that place. I did also like Vita and Charles, their relationship together. I called it. Like I knew that this was gonna happen, and I really like that dynamic because she again has a strong personality. But we also learned that Charles, since day one, since the first book, he's not someone who's gonna take someone's, excuse my language, he's not gonna take someone's shit. Like he is gonna stand his ground, and I think that that really made them compatible in that sense. I also did like the camp rescues. I thought that the camp rescues were done very well and in the short amount of time that the book had. Again, didn't know that this was gonna end, that this story was gonna end with this book, but knowing that, I thought that they were done the best way that they could. Since the first rescue was with a small camp, it made sense that it didn't really take many pages to really get through. And then Thermon was the one that was like a bigger camp and everything. So I liked the idea that Ruby was the one that went back. She's the one that really got the closure that she needed to with that camp. She was the one that went to go put the flash drive in to get the systems down. And I really liked the fact that she was gonna do all this without really knowing that the league was gonna um, come back and pull through. Like she was ready to do this no matter what. Um, so I really like that, and even with that rescue, like we get it from her perspective. We don't really see anything else. We don't see what's happening on the floor. We don't see what's happening with the other kids. Um, because it's just in Ruby's perspective, and Ruby was just in like the tower of like the surveillance things and everything. But I did like that it naturally came about. I also like that Ruby and Sam got closure. So to me, that was a friendship that I felt could have been explored more throughout this series. Um, but it makes sense that with Sam being again back at the camp and Ruby being the one that's out and about in the world and everything, that they don't meet up again up until this book, up until the moment that she's back in Thurmond. But I do like that they do get that closure, especially since in book two, it nudges the fact that Liam had, even though he didn't have memories of Ruby, he had a feeling about Ruby. So knowing that, I expected something similar to happen, or at least wanted something similar to happen with Sam. Again, being someone who got a strong friendship with Ruby, it made sense to me that she would also feel a connection even if she didn't remember it. But I like that they got closure. Next thing that I like is that Ruby was able to connect with her grandmother and her parents. So with her grandmother, that was very um, a nice touch because since the beginning of the book, Ruby wanted to go back with her grandma, right? She knew that she couldn't go back with her parents, or at least she thought she couldn't. And really, her next logical point was going back to her grandma. And then with the parents and everything, and this I can touch upon later. But I like that there was closure there. I just felt like it deserved more time to like let it breathe better. But I did like that there was closure, that Ruby was able to reverse what she had done. Another thing that I'm really grateful that this book did was it gave us answers to the whole Ian virus and the whole reason as to why the kids had these different abilities and everything. I can understand if some people will read it and be like, I don't like the reasonings and everything, but I like that the author gave us that. I like that there was a legitimate reason as to why kids were getting sick and dying, and that the ones that were surviving Ian got these powers and everything. And so to me, I like it, and it also seemed plausible in the sense that like, oh, it got in through the water, so and everybody's drinking water, so that made sense. Whether or not I think it's a strong enough reason is a whole different thing, but at the end of the day, I like that a reason was given instead of leaving it vague. One thing that I did like as well is that Dr. Gray was the one that really neutralized Clancy. Like Clancy was, in a sense, like the big bad in this whole ordeal, in the sense that like he's just like Ruby. He's really powerful. Like he is a really big villain in the first book. In the second book, like towards the end, you find out that he had been orchestrating something sketchy, and even in this book, like he was also trying to orchestrate his whole escape and everything. And I like the fact that his mom, the one that he tried to get rid of or like mess up in the head, she's the one that was able to neutralize him. She was able to like take away the power that he had. So to me, that was just poetic justice. I liked that was the case. Last point that I liked is that the government at the end still didn't know what to do with the kids. I think that that was a very nice realistic touch, because if at the end of the book, like the camps are liberated, the kids are back with their families, and then all of a sudden, like the government just knows what to do, like everything's peachy keen, like that would have felt too fictional in the sense. Like I appreciate the fact that the government was still trying to like control as much as they could, right? They were still trying to get the kids getting these operations. If they didn't get the operations, that then they needed to get identification, and then like again, the ones that had the identification needed to be living in a secluded private community, and they were just trying to control that and everything. And so I like the fact that they was showing this side of the government, because that's realistically, to me, what would be happening. The government would be trying to control this situation as like as best as they can, like because again, I you can see both sides where like on one hand, these kids still have powers. They can still be dangerous if they don't know how to control their powers, or if they have um malintentions. And then you also get the other side where like a lot of these kids don't want to use their powers or don't know how to use their powers enough that they can just do it on their own. Or some of these kids, even if they can control their powers, they don't have any intentions of using them at all, or they don't have any intentions of using them for anything bad. So like it also makes sense that they should be allowed to be in with like regular society. So I like that there is still that imbalance right at the end. It just felt like natural. And even though the book ends, like this series ends with that no, like they're still trying to work out things afterwards. I like that that is like very open ended, right? We don't know for sure like how things are going to play out, but it's not like a very like happily ever after, you know? So I do appreciate that. All right, so now it's time for my rating. I am giving this book a 4 out of 5. It's not perfect, but honestly, it does land very well. It is a solid ending to the series. The two main things that really bothered me in this book that I think either could have been taken out or just needed better fleshing out. One of them was Cole dying. I thought that him dying didn't really add anything to the book. It really didn't. I know that the reasoning to his death was because Clancy thought that he was too much of a unreliable variable in his escape. So if he was going to escape, he needed Cole out of the picture. But in this case, Clancy escaped when Cole was going to be out of the ranch anyways. So I thought that that really didn't stick, like the reasoning didn't stick. And even afterwards, like his presence wasn't, or his absence, I mean, his absence wasn't a really big um player in a sense. Like there a couple pages, the characters grieved in a couple of the pages, but other than that, that was pretty much it. I think by him surviving, I think it would have added a lot more, because they would finally be in the place where Liam and Cole can finally rebuild and fix their relationship, knowing what they know now. Cole is would now be able to stop hiding what he is. He would be able to actually live a life that he wants instead of fighting. I think for Cole's arc, in the sense that he was hiding who he was, and was still trying to fight a battle that benefited thousands of kids, but also benefited him, even though they didn't know that it benefited him. I think that if he was there at the end, that would have been like that would have brought a lot of peace to him, right? And it just sucked that he had to die. So the last thing for me is that Ruby and her parents just needed more time. I like the fact that um, the parents were brought at the end of this book. I really like that they mended their relationship and that Ruby was able to fix their memories and everything. But I think that it just needed a lot more time to breathe because I felt like it touched it, but then like kept continuing and it just like moved it to the side. And the reason why I'm saying it needed a lot more was because in the first book, Ruby's parents were a really big driving point in the sense that like she was traumatized by that experience. And I think her getting this moment where she's now able to fix the damage that she had done, like they needed to have that moment breathe. I think that she would have had a deeper conversation with her parents would have had deeper conversation with her, and I think that that just needed to be a bigger scene, a bigger um piece, because again, this is something that traumatized her since the first book. um but yeah, other than that, I liked everything else, so it's a 4 out of 5. So that's pretty much it for this book. I don't really have anything else to say because, again, I did like everything in general. I will say that, again, the box set that I bought came in four, and these I only read like the three books which were in the trilogy. I've now come to find out that the last book is a book that has like three novellas. I don't plan on reading it because I'm not necessarily that interested. If I do read it, it's gonna be um, the final two that include Sam. Um, but as of right now, I don't have plans on reading it. But I am glad that I did read this trilogy because it is a solid trilogy. It starts pretty solid, ends solid. I think the middle is still iffy, not bad, but there I just didn't like it as much. But I do think that the series in general started strong and ended strong as well. So that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. Go ahead, leave a like, subscribe, comment what you thought about this book or this series, any of these characters, anything that I said. Definitely want to see what people think. Um, but yeah, I'll catch you guys next time.